Hey guys, what's up? This is Brandon. If you guys don't know who I am, I'm an inspired author on Instagram. Basically, I post a lot of writing tip videos and stuff like that. I'm also a published author. I write for mostly fantasy novels, but I also started to break into comics and stuff, and manga and stuff like that. Yeah, if you guys are wondering why I look like shit right now, partially it's because I just took a shower, so my hair looks like I'm Goku. I'm also pretty sick, so I'm just like kind of trying to power through, but that means I get to stay in on this really nice day and make a video for you guys. Oh god, that is hot. So I asked you guys to submit some questions on Instagram that I will go ahead and answer. So let's get right into it, yeah? Okay, so the first question is, which is your favorite book? Well, my favorite book, I've said it in multiple videos, is The Song of Achilles. It's an amazing book by Madeline E. Miller. Basically, it follows kind of, if you guys have read the Iliad, it's basically just the Iliad, which is, you know, following the story of Achilles and how he's like doing his thing on Troy, all this stuff. But it's from the perspective of his lover, Patroclus, who is a male, and two of them are madly in love, and you know they're trying to get through the Trojan War and like this forbidden love thing because Achilles' mom, who's a goddess, doesn't like it. This is really complicated. It's actually not that complicated, but I think maybe 20% of the reason I like this book was because of the story and stuff like that. And you know, everyone knows the Iliad. Iliad, great tale, classic, whatever. But a big part of why the story was, or the book was really good, was because of Madeline's like super poetic writing style. So I definitely recommend that you guys check that out. She also has this book, Circe. I have it right here. Great read as well. Follows the Odyssey, which is kind of the story that happens after the Iliad, from the perspective of Circe, who is kind of like this witch goddess. I won't go too much into that. So, Song of Achilles, Circe is also really good. Definitely check it out. How do I keep being motivated to continue my writing? Because sometimes it's really hard to write. Well, how I stay motivated, sometimes it's setting, like where you're writing, honestly. Sometimes I have trouble writing like in my apartment, so I go out to a coffee shop where everyone's working, and that kind of like forces me to like start working myself. If I'm not personally motivated by the story, I would say go out and consume more content, right? Get inspired by something, right? Whether it's like watching a movie, reading another book. Usually reading books is probably the move. Like when you read a really good book, you are so, or at least this is how it is for me, I get so inspired to want to create something of my own and start like even like practicing in their style and stuff like that. Like if you really like another author's style, it's not a bad thing to go and try and like write in a similar style, because then eventually you kind of adapt certain ways to make it kind of your own as you go along. But like it's okay to take different like aspects of someone else's style if you really like it. So to answer your question, I would go out, consume content, get inspired from other stories, get inspired from other novels, and that will definitely inspire you to keep wanting to create stuff on your own, hopefully. How many hours do you spend to write one chapter, and how many hours do you spend to draw your manga? So it really depends. Usually the first chapter for me goes by really quickly because I already have like everything kind of in my head. So honestly, writing a first chapter can take like, I mean like the drafts could take like a couple hours, like maybe like 2-3 hours. I wouldn't say like it's good because you have to go back and like polish it, make sure it's all good. But I don't know, I write pretty quickly, especially if I have an outline already done. So it doesn't take too long, but chapters differ. I don't have like a set number. If you were, you would be a robot. How many hours does it take to draw your manga? So I don't draw. So if you guys don't know, I'm basically writing and publishing this manga, which is called Somnia, which is, for more information, I guess I'll leave in the link in the description, which would be cool. And basically I'm working with an artist who is a friend of mine on that project. It looks super amazing, and yeah, I don't know. I should probably ask him how long it takes for him to draw each page, because it's probably a lot more work than me writing the story, right? What about a Somnia anime? That would be dope, right? That would be so dope. That would be like a dream come true to get an anime adaptation of any of my stories. That'd be so cool. What are your favorite things to do aside from writing? I really like to play sports, so probably tennis. I live in New York City, so playing tennis is a lot harder than if I was like living back in Connecticut, but tennis is definitely one of my most favorite things to do. I guess another one would be ping pong. So like any racket sport, I love racket sports so much. Oh man. I am most curious of your usual day-to-day routines. Well, I'm employed, so I work an office job, so it's, and then I come home and I write, so that's kind of my my routine. Most efficient way to publish? Well, it depends, right? I'll probably make a separate video on this, self-publishing versus traditional publishing. Depends on what you want to do. If you want to definitely get your thing out there, self-publishing, anyone can publish on their own now, so that's an efficient way, I guess. I mean, if you're looking for the most, like, distribution, a lot of traditional publishers, like the big ones, have a lot of connections, so it's probably easier for them to get you into bookstores and stuff like that. But I think there's benefits and downsides to both sides, so yeah. What's your favorite anime in terms of story? I would say, I don't know, maybe Attack on Titan, honestly, because I mean, like, part of it is, like, because they have my favorite voice actor, they have my favorite animators on the team, they got my favorite Hiroyuki Sawano is composing, Yuki Kaji's voicing Eren. It is crazy, but also the story, it gets so complex, you don't know anything about the Titans, and stuff like that. The animation's really good. So if you guys haven't seen Attack on Titan, it's pretty gruesome, but it's pretty mainstream too, so you guys should probably check that out. How do you stop yourself from giving up when things go bad? I don't know, I have a very optimistic view on the future, so I would say, like, I always think, I don't know, but I always, like, think mentally, like, that I know that things are gonna end up okay, and usually they do, right? So I usually just power through, keep your head up, and because you keep your head up, usually you power through that tougher time better than you would if you just kind of put your head down and was sad about it, and let yourself, I don't know, maybe you get rejected from a publisher or something like that, you know, rather than put your head down and be upset about it. If you know that things are going to end up okay, and you keep looking for more publishers, eventually, like, if you have that right attitude, that right work ethic, things will be fine. What is a book/series that really pushed you to start writing? P.S. Love in Ghost Wolf. Thanks for reading Ghost Wolf. A book/series that really pushed you to start writing. I don't know, when I was really young, so I mean, I started writing when I was like maybe like 8 years old. That's when I started like writing. Started writing my first novel when I was 14. I think the story that really inspired that was the Naruto anime/manga series. But I've always been reading. I've loved reading ever since I was like able to read. I used to like just go to the Barnes and Noble and just like read books and read manga. Like, I remember my first series that I fully read was the Magic Treehouse series, which was like when I was really, really young. They would bring us in elementary school to these scholastic book fairs, and I would just like pick up like all these Magic Treehouse books, like 50 of them. I don't know how many there are. There were like 30 something, 30, 50, and I would read all of them. Like, I would read like a book in a day. I wouldn't say that was the book that pushed me to start writing, but that was like a really early book that probably inspired me in some way to want to create my own stories. Favorite cure for writer's block? Same thing as before. Go and watch a movie. Read a book. Read a lot of books. Read 1,000 books. What POV feels most comfortable for you and why? I should probably make a video on this as well. I feel most comfortable doing third person close. Sometimes it'll be distant third person, like if I don't want the reader to like know who the hell the character is, like if we're coming in like on a villain that's like showing up and the villain's like, I'm trying to keep him mysterious, then I'll be like, alright, distant third person. But usually it's third person close. I want to get into first person, a close first person, because like a lot of the books that I read while growing up, a lot of YA novels, stuff like that, I would always read in first person. But I write a lot of fantasy, so typically I'm more inclined to go with a third person, but I want to practice kind of doing first person. I feel like that would be a cool experience, and also challenging, because I love to do this thing where you hop perspectives and stuff like that. So that's a lot in my novels. If you've read any of my books, a lot of what I do is I have like multiple narratives happening simultaneously, kind of like Game of Thrones. So it's hard to kind of stick to one character for an entire novel, because I want to know what. I mean, that doesn't mean that if you're doing first person, you have to stick with one person's narrative, because you can like go into third person. I've seen authors do different things, right? You can go to third person and go hop into someone else's narrative in the middle, and then hop back to a first person narrative or point of view. But yeah, that's something I definitely need to practice before I actually write a book in that POV. So to answer your question, third person, close. There we go. What is your relationship status? Single. How do you start the first chapter? Typically I start the first chapter. I try to start with a hook, right? Because definitely you want to kind of build out, right, the world that you're doing. I think I go over this in my last video, the importance of a first chapter. You want to build out the world, you want to hook the reader, there's a lot of stuff you need to do in the first chapter, because that's the chapter that the readers are going to be reading first, right? You want to make sure that you grab them at the beginning, and also kind of establish what the story is going to be like. How do I start the first chapter? Usually it's like a hook. Like Ghost Wolf was like an arena fighting scene. God of War Ares was two princes running through a kitchen and getting in trouble with one of the Persian high nobles. Age of Darkness was first chapter. Age of Darkness was the main character getting the shit beaten out of him because he's like a certain minority. So there's a lot of things. That's how I typically like to start with some crazy action, to kind of jolt the reader into it. I'm very much, I very much picture things in my mind kind of like a movie, and I translate that a lot into my novels, I think. Writing romance that's actually good. I don't know if that's really a question, but I'm trying to learn how to write a romance novel. I've kind of set it to the side for now because I'm writing Nora, which is a samurai novel, and then I'm also writing a lot of comics and manga that are kind of in the works. So I've had to set that aside for now, but I really do want to dive back into that slice of life romance novel that I had going. Do you have any writing fears? For example, I'm always afraid my ideas aren't original. I have a lot of writing fears. Everyone's very insecure when you write, when you go out there, that someone's going to criticize your work, that your writing style isn't good enough, that your story's not original, that your stories aren't good, that your characterization isn't good, that your characters don't develop, that your description sucks, that you're describing too much. I have a billion writing fears, but you have to overcome those when you publish, because that's kind of part of the job. How do you plan your dialogue? I should make a video on this as well. But simple answer is, when you write dialogue, when you're writing the draft, it doesn't really matter kind of how much you're writing or what you're writing really, because you can go back and fix it later. So I just kind of let the characters kind of drive themselves. You want to make sure the dialogue drives the story, obviously, so you can go back later and make sure that your dialogue and each word, all the words that there's characters are saying, are not just filler words or something like that, but usually I let the characters speak for themselves, and usually that ends up working. But you always want to make sure that your dialogue is driving the plot. You just don't want to be like, hey, how's it going? Oh, it's going good. Oh, good. You don't need to have boring dialogue like that. And if it doesn't drive the story, not really worth having in your story. Why did you start to be an author? Well, I wrote Age of Darkness, put it online on Wattpad, kind of blew up, and I love sharing stories with people. I love writing, I love reading, and I think it's always awesome whenever you hear back from your readers, and you hear how you've kind of impacted them with your story, and honestly that's been what continues to drive me to keep writing, keep creating these stories. I always get these messages, really kind messages from readers, and it really inspire me to keep wanting to create more stories. So thank you guys. Do you like Stephen King's books, and did you like the It movies? I have read some of Stephen King's books. I read It, the It book. Yeah, I like his books. I don't really I'm not like a crazy fan, so I don't like read all of his books, but I do like his books. I like his style. I actually read his is it memoir or autobiography? It's just called like On Writing or something like that, about his life. Super good. Definitely check it out. And the It movies were really good. They were amazing, actually. I was really into it. I think that, you know, he managed to really like make horror but also make like horror kind of work well with comedy, which was, you know, I think having comedic relief in a horror story is like very important, because if you just have everything be super serious, then it's kind of lame. You know, it's just kind of like, I don't know. It's just not as it's just, I just noticed that recently, is that like in horror movies that have some kind of like comedic relief, some kind of like, you know, like, oh, the stress is over or whatever, like it's a lot easier to sit through those types of movies. And you know, it's still high stress, but I think that translates over to horror novels too. Wow, this is a really long video. Thank you guys so much for asking questions, and hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. I will be leaving links and stuff like that to my novels and stuff like that, what I'm working on, my social media, all in the link in the description. If you guys want to check me out, I always appreciate it. If you guys have any more questions, feel free to leave them in the description, and hopefully I'll put them into another video in the near future. And hopefully this cough and my sore throat clears up too, because that would be really nice right now. I just talked a lot and my throat is like saying, Brandon, stop. So yeah, if you guys want more content, make sure to subscribe to the channel. There's a button. And like the video if you enjoyed it. And yeah, hopefully I'll see you guys in the next one, and peace.